Are Lincoln Six Echo and Jordan 2 Delta happier than their sponsors? Genetic engineering, cloning, and consumerism in Michael Bay's The Island. The Island, directed by Michael Bay, is divided into two parts. The first delves into Aldous Huxley's 1932 Brave New World Genetic Engineering and Cloning and George Orwell's 1984 Highly Structured World, first revealed in 1949. The second starts when a rigid society is questioned and the story turns into a high-tech action picture. It is then when the association with George Lucas's 1971 THX 1138 and Michael Anderson's 1976 Logan's Run begins. Shot in 2005, The Island takes place in 2019 and connects biology and ethics. The purpose of this paper is twofold. First, to demonstrate how science, in its pursuit of the perpetuation of life, can, along with people's innocence, encourage a consumer society to play with fate. And second, to prove how aseptic atmospheres and fashionable, soulless, semi-utopian societies, imagined as providing the perfect partner, children, house, job, car, friends, can conceal really unhappy people because actually they are just the result of a utilitarian process. The first half of the film takes place in a clean, futuristic environment, the inhabitants of which, citizens and supervisors, wear identical uniforms as in Brave New World, THX, and Logan's. The inhabitants believe that this isolated compound, away from an outside world supposedly contaminated by pathogens, has been created to protect them from pollution that has poisoned the earth. There remains, however, one pathogen-free zone, which looks like a wonderful beach resort, a paradise island where winners of a twice-daily lottery go and live happily ever after. Lincoln Six Echo, one of the compound residents, starts having strange nightmares in which he sees a fancy designed boat called Renovatio in a Calvin Klein perfume commercial. That makes him question all the restrictions in his life. Why do I have to wear white? Why do they control my calorie intake? I want bacon for breakfast and not oatmeal. Lincoln, played by Ewan McGregor, makes friends with McCourt, played by Fanny Steve Buscemi, one of the boiler room compound workers. These guys, most probably engineers and janitors, look like truck drivers, but actually birth clones. Who are these clones? Are nothing more, nothing less than the inhabitants of the compound, sponsored by famous rich people, including the President of the United States. They serve as replacement body parts for their rich clients back in the 21st century real world. Again, the film takes place only in 2019. The clowns are born as super healthy adults, but they are educated to the level of 15-year-olds. The corporation sets them to work to create a sense of purpose, which is crucial for longevity. They are childlike, all except Lincoln Six Echo and Jordan 2 Delta, played by Scarlett Johansson. These two good friends are smarter than most of the people who will ever live. Clowns are just allowed to read books for children. They don't know slangy words in English and are so naive. Education degrades in this world, but Jordan and Lincoln belong to two special generations of agnates who can develop extraordinary intelligence and feelings and so acquire knowledge gradually. Little by little, they stop being obedient. Their expectations are completely lost when Lincoln sees actor Michael Clark Duncan's horror scenes in the operating table, getting ready to have an organ extracted for his sponsor, a famous American football player named Starkweather. The film gets psychologically creepier when you hit this very point where everything is revealed and you see Starkweather struggling for his life. Then he screams, I don't want to die. And neither do Lincoln and Jordan, who decide they don't feel like taking a permanent vacation on the island. The island is definitely not a place you want to go. If I had a clone, I just have to do simple household tasks, things people don't like to do, says Scarlett Johansson in an interview. Ewan McGregor points out he would use him to do some occasional paperwork. The difference with their sponsors is that Lincoln and Jordan are pretty much alive and able to get into that state of everything being so new, such as falling in love. Unlike the characters in Katsuo Ishiguro's novel Never Let Me Down, they don't understand their roles as donors. They don't accept the fact that, as Roger Ebert says, the real world raises many of its citizens as spare parts, as migratory workers, minimum wage retail slaves, even suicide bombers. In both works, as well as in Robin Cook's novel and Michael Crichton's film Coma, in which donors are brain dead, the really horrifying thing is that wealthy people get organ transplants from living donors, and that despite all the information provided to them, medicine defines this process as medically assisted homicides. If Sean Bean is in a film, no good can come of it. Bean is Dr. Merrick in the compound and does good things for people. His corporation shows you the positives of what can be done with cloning. He cures diseases such as leukemia or facilitates surrogate pregnancies, but always at the expense of those clones he doesn't see as humans because they exist as a result of a purely utilitarian process and are assumed to have no souls. Actually, he's not quite a villain. He's just doing his job for a board of directors, supervising how the project is run as a business. It is a universal thing that we all want to live longer. Michael Bay did a lot of studying before shooting the film and says it's amazing how cell researchers feel they can cure so many diseases. It's just a question of how far you will go. Do all biologically human lives have to be respected the same way? We all want to find the holy grail of life. Probably in 15 years, we might be able to extend our lives 20 years. But how? In the film, the answer is obvious. We must be cloned when we are young. Now you can clone a human being with a skin cell. In Spain, cloning is legal for research or therapeutic purposes, but there's a controversy. Is the embryo you must later destroy a human being a legal person? No legal system allows the development of a cloned embryo. If this happened, the death of the donor would be a crime under any circumstances. Not everything that can be done with technique can be ethically carried out. Dr. Merrick reckons that organs cannot develop properly without brain activity, and that the Delta and Echo generations were particularly good at creating brains by themselves. The corporation fabricated real human beings who are used as tools and don't really have a purpose, thereby violating Kant's moral canon. According to Kant, the human being is himself a purpose and not only a way to get things. Human beings have a dignity, not a price. In this facility, you have to be very well off to afford a clown. There are lots of tall guys, the pro basketball players, and many foreigners, such as that old Japanese guy who might run a Tokyo bank. Michael Bay says the general concept was that it was going to start off that rich people could afford it, and hopefully one day able to get cheaper, like when you buy a DVD recorder. Through economies of scale, it starts coming down in price the more you do it. So far, only these wealthy businessmen and athletes afford this $5 million insurance policy against disease, accident, or other form of biological hazard. In 1984, inhabitants have lost their identities. In the island, the moral condition of the agnates is annihilated. However, Lincoln and Jordan are able to be critical and make free decisions. Lincoln has never seen a motorbike, but he wants one when he sees a biker in the Arizona desert after running away from the facility. Jordan feigns an innocence of all the ways of the modern world, but she tells McCourt, loud and clear, that they are not idiots when they are about to begin the search for their sponsors. If the world of THX is oppressive, the real polluted world these brand new guys encounter is fantastic and wonderfully different from the brutality and scarce possibility of critique that infected the world of Dr. Merrick's compound. They don't want to be protected by paternal comfort any longer. What the facility can offer isn't enough despite calculated perfection. They just want to show the audience there's diversity and imperfection, as well as the materialism and selfishness that surrounds modern society. This brave new world is visible. Jordan discovers her donor, Sarah Jordan, is a beautiful Calvin Klein model. Lincoln seeks echo, meets his sponsor Tom, a famous architect whose liver is rotten because of too much philandering. Both guys are identical twins with perfectly compatible organs and same bodies. When Tom and Lincoln are face to face, there's a personal identity crisis because although they are genetically identical, their biographies are not. Lincoln seeks Echo's alter ego sense of morality is clearly and utterly inferior. Everybody hates his sponsor because he is so vile and creepy. Both Sarah Jordan and Tom Lincoln are handsome, rich, and famous, but science has done a better job with their agnates than the Consumer Society did with them. Science has improved and upgraded Lincoln 6 Echo and Jordan 2 Delta as they are possessed of greater ethical sense. Their affective superiority goes beyond Tom Lincoln's immoral individualism towards a greater sense of collectivity. At the end of the film, they escape into Tom Lincoln's jet set lifestyle, but before they return to the facility to free their fellow agnates with a little help from Chaimon Hunsu. The Island was a box office failure. Marketing, the minor status of the actors, the movie's concept. Critics also argued that the title was bad because it referred to something that doesn't exist in the picture. To me, it was great, even the second part, with its dialogues full with breathless imperatives. It was a big summer blockbuster to entertain younger audiences, an action movie with clowns on the run chased by train, plane, automobile, and helicopter, which introduced young guys to sci-fi, utopia, literature, and other previous films. They shot on the skyline of Detroit for Los Angeles to make the film more futuristic. The action scenes in the film, and above all, the very end, are a way to induce dream and imagination outside the regimes of work, administration, and control of the facility. They reveal the real world as a total fantasy of leisure and pleasure, which I don't think can be believable for the general public. Cinema reproduces reality, and reality is not as beautiful as some make us believe. Louis Althusser points out that cinema presents, through imaginary means, the relationships of individuals to their real conditions of existence, and so frames people's understanding of the world. Aren't many of our social interactions a quick transmission of tangible things? Even worse, picture of it didn't happen, we say now. According to Brian Baker, the second part of the film captures the visibility of the visibility. The island mixes science fiction and the utopian tradition of bringing ideology into view. The quasi-human community of the compound is organized on a perfect principle, and that is how many people pretend their lives are like nowadays. Some people can be convinced by the power of the visual, but not all of us can be deceived by appearance. The island is able to negotiate a space of critiques of contemporary conditions of a spectacular capitalism and class conflict. The island is good because it reveals the real world through their representation of an alternative other. There's always a McCourt who reveals what's typically hidden. He tells Lincoln and Jordan they are not real, but they have an intrinsic motivation rather than many unhappy people who just perform assigned roles, reproduce patterns, or follow a script. To conclude, the Lincolns and Jordans of our present day society are Ursula Le Guin's the ones who walk away from Omelas. They are smart enough not to be blinded by promises of happiness which conceal the truth. Fortunately, like many others, they are able to combine what Walter Benjamin called the shock of modern civilization with generosity, honesty, and ethics, because too much apparent perfection may eventually destroy the system itself. Thank you.